This is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I'm Brent Jackson.
Brent, today our guest is Holly Worthington. Holly Worthington is a fifth generation Washingtonian. She is the principal broker for the DMV Region for Compass. Holly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We always have our set list of questions here, which, as you were just saying, we don't even need that. We can just
just rap.
We can just talk real estate
We're in the same
for real.
Industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we were just talking about a situation, and I'm not going to go too into the details because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Sure.
But
or jinx the deal.
Or jinx. Well, again, though, we'll get to that too.
Yeah.
But I just ratified a deal, and the deal it's a clean contract. It's all cash. It was also, the way it came about was the seller had made an aggressive counteroffer during this. It all happened, at odd hours, like late into the night, early in the morning. Meanwhile, in the wings, while this was all going on, another agent had inquired about making an offer, but she was asking a lot of questions about, conditions of the property and things that would turn a seller off, quite frankly.
And that would let you know that the buyer's afraid.
Right.
Either the buyer's really afraid about buying it and going to have a million questions, or the agent is one of those agents that makes the buyer afraid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but in that time period of when all these things were happening, I still hadn't received a written offer, obviously.
Right.
I didn't put any pressure on her to send it, but
Sure.
I also had something that was in the works that I didn't really think was going to work out because of the aggressive nature of the counteroffer. It was very far apart from the original offer. So now I'm getting some heat from this.
Yeah.
And you're the principal broker for a lot of agents. How many agents do you
There's about 1,650 agents in the DMV, but that includes Richmond and Baltimore. So that's the whole region for Compass here. And so
you deal with a lot of things like this,
a
right?
lot of agents.
Yeah, and that's the funnest part of my job, honestly. And to me, I guess I grew up this way, but everybody's a puzzle. And to me, you just have to find out what matters to somebody. And if you can figure them out, you can help them with compassion. So like I noted about that agent that did not get the property in your story, I think that agent either isn't aware of how he or she is coming across to you, and the fear that she's sharing, which is either her fear about buying property, and she thinks she needs to advocate for a client by over questioning and investigating, or it's her client doing that to her, and she's afraid of the client, or the client's fearful. But something's going on there, and I enjoy helping an agent that makes a mistake like that, not make a mistake like that.
Right.
And so, because that is a mistake, and I think that agent, when he asked you that, lost the property.
Yeah.
And that's too bad, because if they had spoken to you differently, you might have waited.
Yeah, I would say if I just put myself in their shoes, right?
Yeah.
Similar situation.
Yeah.
It's a hot property. It just came on the market. It's in a great location, right?
Yeah.
I'm working for a buyer. Maybe my buyer isn't the all cash buyer, right?
Right.
There's no reason to put any of those cards out until I have a written
Exactly.
offer.
Yeah.
And I presented something, the full picture.
Totally.
Right?
I think one thing agents do that I think is a classic mistake is call the buyer's agent will call the buyer's agents will call the listing agent and say, will you take an offer that's contingent on the sale of a property? And I'm like, nobody wants that. Why ask? Just write it and talk them into it with the power of the strength of your buyer. If you can, maybe a huge earnest money, maybe non-refundable, maybe something. I don't know. There are ways to work that out. But if you do, I think you made a great point. If you're tipping your cards up front, and and your cards aren't so hot,
Right.
That's a foolish way to go about it. But I think the funnest part of my job is being able to advocate for someone who never had anybody advocate for them. And I think most people in the world didn't grow up with parents who advocated for them. I certainly didn't. I think my parents were actually not advocating. I mean, it was like, you stink. You know what I mean? Like that. And so I think if you can advocate for someone and help them see, if you do that in a compassionate way, if you're in my shoes, help them see where they might have looked at it differently without judging them and without making them feel bad if it's possible. They'll have to learn on their own where they're stubborn or where they don't want to change. And we all need to work on that, all
Right.
of us. So,
Right.
yeah.
I mean,
I'm sorry to get overly serious on you, but
No,
that-
no, no.
that's
I mean,
actually
good
one
stuff,
of my
yeah.
key values. It really is.
No, this is there's a great elements to psychology to what you're saying there.
Well, I think empathy. I think a lot of people don't approach things with compassion, and it's hard when you're selling real estate and you're going a million miles an hour, and everyone's calling you and hassling you, and then someone calls you up and is talking to you in a way that's just flat out stupid, right? And if I always look at it as, well, they're doing the best they can. Do I want to sell the listing? I don't sell anymore, so I've been off the street for 28 years. I don't know, long time. So if you are you look at them with compassion, and you know, okay, that person's doing the best they can. That's not so hot, but that's what they're doing. You at least know that's the best they can do, and you can choose to work with someone different. Or if you're in my job, you can choose to try to coach them. That's not your job, but you can try to coach them. And I think in that story, one thing you said that was compelling is that you can say, or you thought about saying is to that agent is, look at the impression you gave me when you asked me those questions. And I have to share that with the seller, that you see agents.
Sure.
I say to agents, I remember when we used to present contracts in person, I would say to the agent in front of me, why do you have a radon test in here? And they would say, well, everyone does a radon test. And I said, so your buyer isn't asking for that, you're asking for that, right? Huge difference, right? Or why do you have an appraisal contingency in here when the financing contingency covers it? Those kinds of questions. And you can find out that the other agent thinks they're doing the right thing, but it's really not the buyer. And sometimes you can get a good transaction to work by finding out whether it's the agent or the buyer. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you guys do that all the time. I'm sure you have great reputations, and I'm not saying that to suck up. It's true. And I'm sure it's because you're nice to people. And that's not easy sometimes in this job.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Just a general question here. In your line of work, so the top agent at Compass and then like the newbie that just came in off the street, zero experience, which one for you is more challenging to get them to do or to get them to the next level?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We only hire new agents who may join a team, so I won't be training them. I spent a lot of my life hiring brand new agents, some of whom are working with me at Compass when I was at Long & Foster. So I think how easy someone is to train has largely to do with how receptive they are to personal growth. And the kind of people I really enjoy are people who want to do the best they can. That doesn't mean make the most money. It means do the best they can. They would care if they made a mistake. We all make mistakes. They would care, and they are open to feedback, and their ego isn't in the way. And that's hard. That's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I ask for feedback all the time, and I'll hear it, and I'll go home. God, they're just dumb. No, I'm just kidding. But you have to take it seriously and really think about it. All of you know people that when you give them any feedback, even clients, that they argue with you and get mad. Well, that's a person who's never going to get any feedback again.
Right.
And so when you go through your life and you've never gotten any feedback, you wonder why people don't tell you anything, or why don't you hear other things that are going on. And it's because you lash out at people when you hear feedback. And that's a major flaw. So I think the emotional IQ of the agent has a lot to do, regardless of whether they're new or they're highly successful with how they do. And lastly, I'll say some people are just kind of selfish. And I think that's a shame. But most people who are doing that don't think they're being selfish. And I've found, and I know you all deal with clients that are like that. We all have that in our lives and agents. But I think most people who are being a jerk don't know they're being a jerk. You know what I mean? All of us. We've all done it. And so I think the challenge is to create an emotionally safe environment where you could say that. And I use humor for that sometimes, or tell them privately. But I mean, I think I have to have enough relationships with people that I can say what I think in a constructive way, that they might be able to get something out of it. And that includes clients.
So even like the top agents, and again, I heard this in the sports world earlier this week. Is like the sports teams and players that are at the top of their game. It's harder. It's easier for them to fall than it is for the the bottom ranked team or player to rise up. So like as you just mentioned, the top agents are going to have the ego. They're going to have all the success behind them. So what are you saying to them to coach them? Like you just mentioned, you're very direct. Are you pulling them aside? Are you doing like the Belichick screaming at Tom Brady in a meeting, like you need to be doing X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I don't give people advice that didn't ask me for it because I find it just falls on deaf ears. You know, it reminds me of people telling me, "Oh, Holly, you should lose weight, or you shouldn't eat at McDonald's, or you should." And it's like,
no one wants to hear it.
Let me know. Let me know when I told you I was interested because I think I didn't. But I remember the first day I started managing, and I was at Long and Foster. It was 1992, and I pulled out. You're going to think I only eat fast food. That's not true, but this is a fast food joke. I pulled out of the drive-thru at Burger King on Connecticut Avenue up by Albemarle, and there was a reporter at the bottom of the driveway, and she said to me, "Oh, we're doing a survey." This is my first day managing. I'm like, "Oh, well, this will be a luxury brokerage. The broker's getting interviewed about McDonald's." Or she says, "Which kind of French fries do you prefer, Burger King or McDonald's?" Well, everyone knows McDonald's French fries are better. But I didn't say. I said, "Oh, they're both fabulous," and laughed. And I thought, and that was on the news. And I was like, so embarrassed. I don't think a lot of people saw it because people don't watch the news as much as they used to. But I remember thinking, I am so tacky. But I just don't give people advice that they didn't ask for.
Okay.
And but when people call me, I will tell them what I think. But I have to try to do it in a kind way. I'm just going to say, I think you're hurting yourself by thinking that way. Here's another approach. Think about it. And so I think my value to agents and other people, I hope, is to make a positive difference in their life and to help them have a better life and help them be more aware of themselves and how they're approaching it. And so people will ask me stuff and they'll say, "I'll know you'll tell me the truth and you won't judge me." And I think I just grew up in such a judgy household that I think everybody's okay. You know what I mean? Even an axe murderer was doing the best they could at the time. I don't want to be around that person, but you know what I mean? And if you accept it that way, you have a much better chance of clearly seeing what your clients are doing. I know I'm talking too much, but I have one little short real estate story. You can just edit all this out. We had these two buyers that wrote an offer on a property out in the suburbs, an expensive property, and the basement, the seller had part of the basement waterproofed, and then right before settlement, it leaked a little bit, very small. Listing agent took photos of it, videos. She did the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, agent from another company did the right thing. The wife was just freaking out. She just decided, I don't know if I want to buy this property. They went back on the walkthrough. They had the person that fixed it and had done the other waterproofing there to talk about it. The wife's view of what happened, this is the morning of settlement. They're on the phone with me. The wife's view was, I didn't learn anything, and this house isn't safe to buy, and I don't trust the sellers. The husband's view was, we got all the information we needed, and I think it's a great purchase, and we should move there. The house, of course, hasn't changed. So I said to them both, you, Mr. Buyer, are having a logical conversation, and your wife's having an emotional one, and they're both valuable, your wife. And I said, I don't want anyone to feel dismissed here, but you all are on two different pages because one of you is looking at this logically and the other is looking at it emotionally. And I had already told the wife, you can't know you can trust the seller on any house you buy. That's why 50% of marriages break up. You can't tell in advance. You can't tell.
That's right.
So
That's right.
You just have to know you can't trust the seller and accept that, right? So they went to settlement 2 hours later, which I wasn't sure what they would do, but they did settle, and I think I just had to talk to them that way to get them out of it. So I think it can be helpful.
But you said it in those terms, like you're having a logical conversation, you're having an emotional conversation. I think only a broker could do that. Yeah. As an agent, if you said that to your client.
Crazy broker, crazy, right.
Yeah, right. Well,
yeah.
Are they still married?
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are?
Yeah. I couldn't believe they went to settlement. And after settlement, they were happy drinking the bottle of champagne. We had at the settlement table. I thought, okay, that's a tough marriage, right?
Yeah.
But I would say, like, all of those things that you're saying are true. I mean, these are levels of understanding of how we work emotionally and cognitively, and people don't see it in themselves as much, especially in those moments. I mean,
it's
it's a big purchase. There's water on the floor. And as a broker, you see it every day. And it's like people are getting on with their lives, doing these things all the time. You're going to be a seller someday. There's some, and there's only one. But again, what I'm trying to say is like as an agent, when you're the agent for that client and they're going through that, you're sort of, it's really like dealing with children almost. And
plus they attack you.
Right.
The clients
they
will
really
attack
do.
you and blame you.
Yes.
So I have to come in as the person that they'll go, well, I don't like my agent. I go, that's fine. That, it doesn't always work out. You're not going to always love each other. It's okay. And you don't really have to like me, and you don't have to trust me because you don't know me. I get it. But I'm going to tell you what I think is going on. I've been watching transactions for over 40 years, and I think I can tell you what's happening here. And usually if you say that and you're confident about it and you believe it, they'll believe you.
Yeah.
One of the things, I went to Ireland recently, and I went to Greenland too, all these other places, but I saw this sheep herder demonstration, and I asked the guy, I've seen one before, really great Irish sheep farmer, and I said to him, how do those dogs that are so little get those sheep to behave? Because the dog just goes near them. The sheep are like, okay, I'm out of here, I'm going to do whatever the dog wants. And he said, it's all in their eyes. And I thought that was fascinating, because if you are confident about what you're saying, and I don't mean fakey confident, you need to believe it, because if you're fakey confident, they'll catch that. They'll sniff it out, right? So I thought that was a great story for agents. The other example I think was a good one is, if you remember, and this is not a political statement, you remember the debate between Trump and Biden? And Trump's up there talking confidently, maybe making up a bunch of stuff, but talking confidently. And Biden did not come across as confident. He came across as very old and not confident. And so some people left and went, Trump killed him. And even it wasn't about the content. And I think the emotional side of things and the confidence that agents portray rules about 80% of your business.
Yeah,
indeed.
I also think, that's a great story. As Max mentioned, it's a large purchase, maybe the largest of their lifetime. I'm like the husband. I'm very logical, very direct with people. I don't think you can play into the emotions. Yes, it's an emotional day and whatnot, but I think that as soon as you ride that emotional wave with the buyer or seller, things can really start to go sideways.
Yeah. Sometimes, and agents will ask me, I think you're right, agents will ask me, well, I'm so angry, like the agent that was complaining to you, Max. I think they'll complain, and you just kind of go, people will come and go, I'm so mad about that. And, this agent didn't give me a chance to write an offer, and blah, 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 all that. And I don't mean blah, blah, like it's not important. It's valuable. And I just go, okay. And they go, what do you think I should do about it? I said, well, next time, don't ask annoying questions. Write an offer more quickly. And what can you do about it now? I want you to go somewhere for 1 hour and be really pissed off about it, be really mad, and then drop it. In other words, it's letting them know that being mad for that length of time is a waste of time. But I say that you have a right to be mad. Just go be mad and get it over with and move on. Otherwise, they'll fester for days.
Yeah,
we all do that, right?
7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You can't change the past, and you're going to be on the other side of a table with Max down the road. So, don't piss him off now.
Exactly.
That's what I was thinking about as this was occurring this morning. Right, I'm trying to come in here in the best mindset possible to have my interview, right, and it's always tricky, right? Something's always happening on the front.
I had 2 people I needed to call back on my car ride down here, and I went, one of them's difficult. And I said, I'm not going to do that because I know it'll get in my head and I won't do a good job here. I'll call him when I get out of here. But there aren't very many agents that put me off like that. Mostly it's people that are just really selfish and don't want any feedback. And I'm fortunate I don't have very many people like that. And I also... I might say that to someone. I'm just saying, I know you don't want my feedback, so why are you calling me? I mean, you're just calling me to tell me I suck, or the industry sucks, or what?
Well,
or Max sucks, or Brent sucks, right?
I mean,
or I suck, right?
I think it's about how different personalities, like you were saying, how someone comes across, or how they're going to interpret the bad news. That's what I was going to get to. I think being an agent, you have to get to an extreme comfort level with accepting bad news.
You do.
Because
it's not about you.
Right. We truly, nobody in this business that I know of wins more than they lose. It's not possible.
What a great line. That's
the Roger Federer line right there.
Right. Well, as Federer spoke at the Dartmouth commencement earlier this year, and he said, and you think of how many tournaments Federer won, Grand Slams, the whole thing. He only won, or not only, but he won 55% of his points over time. And that's what it took
Yeah.
It's not that the margin was that thin. I mean, the points that he won were important points,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's knowing that.
Sure.
But real estate is like it is a tough game, and it has gotten tougher.
Oh, much tougher.
I mean, way tougher.
Way tougher. And it's gotten tougher over the years that I've watched it. It's gotten tougher. It's gotten tougher every year. And the level of complaints, the expectations of an agent that the consumer has, I pretty much deal with for the region, any problem case, anybody writing a demand letter because their basement leaked 6 months after settlement or anything like that. So
are you going from Richmond all the way to Baltimore? Is that your region? Or you
yeah.
Wow, that is a big region.
It's surprising that once you talk to someone, I think the most important thing to say is when a member of the public's complaining about their property is they need to write a letter to the seller. And what a lot of agents say is, well, the buyer wrote a letter to me. And I'm like, you're not the owner. You're the conduit here. And so they need to write a letter to the seller and let the seller answer. But a lot of agents love to fix everything. It's their nature to try to fix and help. But you create liability for yourself. I'm not saying don't help. That's not what I mean. I think we should always help our clients after settlement too. But don't give people the impression that you're the one that caused their basement to leak or you had anything to do with it, because you didn't, unless you told them to pick one inspector and that inspector was lousy. And then you have some liability. But
we've had that happen before.
Oh, yeah.
We were representing the seller.
Yeah.
And it happened with the buyer agent.
Happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, inspectors miss a lot with these old houses.
Sure.
I mean,
and they can't see behind walls. And yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where are the termites or where they're not.
Exactly. One of the things you were going to ask me, so I'm just going to ask myself.
okay. Go for it.
Self-interview.
Is what advice would I give? Yeah, there we go. What advice would I give my younger self? And the answer to that would be go to therapy earlier. I think I went to therapy in my 40s. I had partnered with someone managing a long and foster office, and she was so much like my mother, and I didn't realize it, and that sounds so stupid, but she was just right in my blind spot. And I think knowing you have blind spots, learning what they are as best you can, is just really important. So it really helped me. My neighbor kept going, you've got to go talk to Barbara. You've got to go. But instead of eating Dove bars, but I did. And,
Dove bars and French fries. Okay.
Yeah. And I just learned a lot more about the reality of how I was raised. The reality of it just enables you to see other people more clearly, and without carrying your ego in it or your agenda or your own perspective so much. I think it takes you out of it, and you can really focus on the other person. One thing I think is a great quality that top agents have is when they're talking to someone, they are invisible. In other words, you're just listening, and it's not all about you. And that doesn't mean you can't have some personality in it and be silly and ridiculous, because that's probably my trademark. But inappropriate jokes. But I think it helps you stay out of it and let it be all about them. And that helped me a lot. So
going back like 28 years, just a question I have, what made you pivot from being a real estate agent to going into management?
Yeah. So my family, and everyone goes, oh, Holly will get to talking about her mother. Just wait. And I'm just kidding. My family my dad was in real estate. My dad's parents grew up on Leroy Place a few blocks away. So, and his real estate office was in Georgetown. But my parents just didn't really talk to their children. They just didn't. They didn't feed them. It was as if they were substance abusers, but they weren't. It was just this disassociated family. So I really grew up on the street, and I met so many people, and I think I got a strength from that, even though you would look back at it and think that's pretty messed up. I think, so I started selling when I was 28. I had worked managing a school down here. I DuPont Circle, the Owl School, all-day little funky school. And then I went to work for an architect in Bethesda, and he was a bigot, and I just couldn't take it. And so I left there. I did computers and accounting and that kind of thing. And then I'd gone to GW and majored in anthropology, which is just the study of culture and people. So I'm interested in that. And I love to travel. And so that's like 18 answers in one. And sorry. And so I started selling, and I started when I was 28, and I sold for 9 years. And I had one son at the time, and he was 4. And I thought, the manager of our Long and Foster office left. And I thought, maybe I could do that. So they called me up and asked me about the job, and I went and talked to them, and I said, these agents need help. No one's helping them. I mean, that's my view. But I don't think I believed in my heart I could help them. I just knew they needed help. I don't think I had the self-confidence or the self-awareness to know what difference I could make. And so they ended up giving me the job. I couldn't believe it. And I took a 50% cut in pay and from selling. And then I just kept working on it. And then I partnered with another manager, and that's what sent me to therapy, which was, when you meet the demon, it's a gift in a way. And so I did that. And so I thought managing would give me my weekends off. That's hilarious.
Right.
Well, yeah,
because we all work 24/7. Let's face
Agents
it,
always have
right?
problems.
I'm running into this. Sorry.
No, these agents always have questions.
Yeah,
And like they know that you have the experience of like 10 times or 1,000 times the experience based on the amount of transactions you have to like dig into. Then.
Yeah. Well, I think you asked in there. We were going to talk to me about how do I delegate when you've got that many agents.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to manage is to make sure everybody has all the information they need in advance. So I taught 19 times in the end of July and August all about the NAR settlement, how the forms had changed in each jurisdiction. I wrote on the forms, how do you, all of that, and went to every office and did it in person. And I think it really matters if the agents have the information they need up front. And so then you don't have as many questions. So the questions I end up getting are more judgment call questions,
right.
Or this person's mad at me. What's the best way to diffuse this? Or, what should, the basement leak, like that. So, so I think if you give out the information in advance, not just in writing, but you say it, everyone pretty much already knows what I think. I know they know that I think that they should not be selfish if they can try not to be, and that I'm not going to judge them, and that they are doing the best they can. And if they're having a hard time, I'm there for them. I mean, I end up talking to people about you need ADD medicine, or you're drinking too much, or whatever. And I don't mean that in a judgment way, but somebody needs to help these people. I grew up with no advocate. I would have had a much better life probably if someone had been looking out for me. You know what I mean? I mean, I have a great life, so I'm not complaining, but I just think everyone deserves to have somebody who cares about them and sees them for who they are, and that's hard. And I had to go to therapy to learn that.
It's a totally different angle in this business to come from that perspective, because we meet everyone too, and we see their problems. On a they could exhibit themselves like just running into them at an open house or through a deal, and you're whoa, okay, this person's got demons.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not our problem. We're not here to solve that today. We need to finish a deal or do something like that. But you're really thinking about these people.
But you have to know the demons are there, and then you just work around them. So I think identifying them is huge.
Yeah.
And identifying your own issues, is huge. So if you can, but it's a challenge for all of us. And I think some people don't, people say, well, how could you say your mother didn't care about you? Of course she loved you. Of course. And that just shows me that they have a level of denial about reality, because some parents murder their children. Some of them drive their kids off a cliff. I mean, come on. They're pedophiles. They're all kinds of horrible things. Those people were somebody's parents, maybe, or brother or sister. So why is it not real if it's someone you know? It happens all over the place.
Yeah.
And people make mistakes, and they have tragic lives and also fantastic lives. So I think reality is, I just am a real big fan of the truth, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. I just care if it's true. So I'm not good with big fat liars, I will tell you.
One thing I always think about with people, because we're constantly interfacing with all kinds of people.
Yeah.
I think about, you never really know what's going on in their life necessarily.
No, you don't.
Like,
no.
you don't know if they got some bad news from a doctor that day.
That's right.
Or their wife did, or whatever, a million different things.
Or they feel insecure all day, every day, and that's why they have a hot red car. I mean, I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
We get, like Max mentioned, we get screamed at not all day long, but on a lot. It's like, my first response is like, let them digress, because it could be they lost their job, they lost whatever.
Sure.
There's something else in their world, and we're the mirror that they're reflecting upon, like screaming and yelling, and there's something else to their situation.
I think you're right, and that something else could have been from way long ago. It
Right.
could not even be current. It's the same reason I was telling you earlier, when someone gives me advice about what to eat, it makes me mad. And I thought, drop it. So what? And it's because I grew up with no food, and I'm like, I have a right to eat, And so you all are going, yeah, you clearly know how to eat. I'm a little chubby here, but but I did. And
This
so,
guy doesn't eat, by the way.
Oh,
He's
you
just-
don't?
I don't eat.
Well, how do you make? You should have grown up in my house. That would
I just do fasting. So like right now I'm on hour 8 o'clock was 36, so 30. I'm at 38 hours no food.
Can you imagine
so,
this?
yeah.
no.
Like, can you?
Do you get grumpy?
I do. I get hangry.
Yeah, I can
Just
really.
yelling at everybody.
I can really tell. I'm
Right.
just kidding. I'm totally joking.
Here's a happy pill.
Yeah, I'm just telling you. Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh. And what does that do for you exactly? Keeps your weight down?
Keeps
or?
my weight down.
Yeah. And so, how long do you fast for?
I
This is a
usually
reverse
do,
interview.
Yeah,
You
reverse.
see?
So
No, I'm
usually I do. Right now I'm doing 36. I do that once a week, and then I'll eat for 4 hours starting at 12:30, and then I shut it down for 20. So then it's 4:20, 4:20. So I eat 4 hours a day, usually between 4 and 7.
Yeah, I've heard other
4 and
people doing that, where they, intermittent fasting,
Right.
and I don't know if
It's not healthy.
it's not healthy.
I don't think so.
Well, neither is what I'm
Well-
doing, but I'm doing it anyway.
Well, wait. Don't you are also really good about your exercise regimen and everything. Don't you think that handles like a lot of
I think
the?
it does.
Well, so
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
All right, back to the topic. Hey.
And you know what? Really, I mean, if your mental health is good, your physical health will probably be good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been running and exercising, playing basketball, lifting since I was in high school.
Yeah.
And that was one of my friends challenged me on this. It was last August, August of 23. Like, hey, let's do this fast. Let me see if you can get to 36 like me. And I'm like, all right, let's try it. And I got to like hour 12 and I was starving, so I started to eat. But I'm like, let me try this and see if it works. So for over a year, I've been doing this intermittent fasting. So discipline is great because I used to, if I was home, we have 2 kids, jelly, whatever's in there. Like I'm just eating a bunch of junk.
Sure.
So I've been able to cut all that back. And but I do eat whatever I want in that 4-hour span. Cakes,
Works for
cookies,
me.
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not trying to like expose your like
No,
diet
I
thing.
think
But I
it's
was interested.
interesting.
I'm interested because it's like but just straight up, I think of you you're someone who's in really good shape already, and
Right.
you've got a great discipline for exercise and everything, which a lot of people wish they had.
Oh, including me. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
but it's like motivating yourself to do that, and he
Yeah.
does that all the time. So
I know somebody in the office said I was going with my family to Whistler this winter last Christmas, and I said, I think this is the first time I'm not going to ski, and she said, why? And I said, I just am too fat and out of shape, and I'm afraid it's not safe. I've skied all my life, and I just was, and she said, but you have 6 weeks, you could change that. And I said, well, I guess I don't feel like it.
yeah,
You know what?
yeah.
I mean, if I wanted to, I would.
Yeah.
Clearly, I don't want to. I don't know why, but so
Yeah.
anyway, interesting. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On a side note, Max can appreciate this. I haven't had anything to drink either. Not that I wanted to stop drinking or whatever,
Yeah.
but because of my the eating habits,
Yeah.
I was shutting it down at 6 or 7, so I haven't had anything to drink in over a year either.
Yeah.
And that was just because of this fasting thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't drink either, but it's not for any reason other than I used to go to the bars like when I was 14, like, I told you, not
14.
supervised. Yeah, down here. And, I remember
Different
being
era.
11 in a car with a bunch of guys and friends driving around DuPont Circle waiting for the clock to change at midnight to have a new date on it at midnight because, but my parents had no idea where I was. No idea. I mean, literally nowhere. I turned 17 sleeping in a cornfield in Europe that I'd hitchhiked all over Europe by myself. It was just
At
but
17?
But you know what? When you have that, you have the sky's the limit because you can just go do whatever you want. You also don't have anyone supporting you to apply for college or do all those things. So it's very different. But we went to the bars the whole time, and so half those people I knew from those days are dead. I mean, they just kept on going. And but by the time I got to my 30s when I was selling real estate, I kept getting allergies from drinking beer or anything. It just kept making me have allergies, and I just went. And I kept losing my voice, and I went, which would have been a blessing to the world probably. But I just slowed down because it was making me sick and getting in the way of selling real estate. So I just kind of petered out.
Yeah.
But I did manage to marry 2 people with, they don't call it alcoholism anymore, they call it alcohol use disorder. So I've done that. I've been there, done that. And I have 2 boys, 37 and 29, and I always make sure they're in good shape. One
Nice.
lives
That's
in
good.
Australia.
Nice.
Yeah.
The NAR settlement, you're at the 20,000 foot view. being a broker. And I like what you said earlier about making sure that, all of your agents are aware of what the new documents are. But what about the practice itself? I mean, I think that a lot of the headlines that I see from InMin and our regular resources are like how to deal with these conversations with buyers and how to get people to sign or whatever. By the way, I don't think about things like that. Like when I think about dealing with the public and like people who need service, like we have a way of that we're going to have to do business. And I make it very clear. It's like we have an exclusive agreement. It's like I'm working for you. It's not like I'm locking you into a jail cell, but we need to be engaged.
Yeah.
But a lot of agents, they're still having trouble with this,
It's
or they always
you're
did.
confident in the service you provide, and you know how to help somebody, and so you know that you will focus on that person, figure out what they need, and do a good job. So this is just a step, and many agents don't have that strength that you have, and I'm sure both of you have it. You just don't. If you don't have it, there are people in this business, not you guys, because I would have heard, from agents talking.
People,
yeah, I would have heard. So I know that. I know that sounds very obnoxious for me to say. I know something about you, but you can hear when agents complain, and you also know who's complaining, and you have to realize, like the agent that was complaining at you, well, that agent needs to learn something, and so you have to, when you're listening to who's doing the complaining, you can know whether to take it with a grain of salt or why they might be complaining, because they complain a lot, maybe. Do you know?
Sure.
But I think some agents are more transactional and they're looking for a deal. And I think that's such a mistake in our industry, but there are people like that. And especially agents who get online leads. They don't know that person at all. They don't have any relationship with them. And it's very hard to create a relationship from scratch with someone and get them to make the biggest purchase of their life, or one of them, when they don't know you. So that's the hardest way to do the business. Transactional real estate, I think, is the hardest. I think relationship-based real estate is the most important. And if you're operating that way, everyone will know. When you are talking to clients and you talk about setting up the expectations about how you're going about the business, you're just going to explain it. And this is how it is. And it's okay if you don't want to do that. It's okay. Because I've got other friends that will give me business, or other people. So it's okay. And it's not an approach that's based on desperation, or I have to get the deal, or I'm broke, or whatever. It's based on your values, which are you want relationships with people and you want to help them get what they want. And if that's your value system, you'll succeed.
Yeah.
Because people want to be around people that aren't always on the take. Do you know?
Right. I mean, and don't you think that's the problem to begin with, right?
Yeah.
That's the reputation.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say that, in our new environment now with buyers who still may be confused out there, or were before.
Sure.
I wouldn't say we got a ton of direct leads before the change, but recently I am getting a lot more direct calls to see my listings.
Yes.
I don't know if it's
I think that's a trend.
Yeah, I think it's a trend. And I don't know if it's, I put a lot of stuff on social media, so I get a lot of likes and clicks and whatever, and people reach out and they want to see it. These are legit buyers who want to see these properties.
Brent's not going to be liking your listings when he hasn't eaten, though. That's not happening.
Yeah, I'm doing the opposite.
Hate that guy.
Listen. I just think
what is this?
You have to automatically like all my posts. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
Okay, auto like. Okay, and vice versa.
I have some algorithm. I go in there and like certain ones.
I'll even like your posts.
Yeah.
I'm happy to
just give me a little heart. So these but I've done this for many years, and you just know. When someone reaches out to you, I bet them as much as I can. I'm like, I need a name, I need a phone number, I need an email. I'm not asking you to sign anything.
WhatsApp.
No, God, no, WhatsApp.
So technically, you're supposed to have them sign something.
I think as long I send them the disclosures, and I tell them I'm representing the seller.
Yeah.
And
perfect.
That's about as far as I go. And I say, are you working with any other agents? You're not working with another agent. If someone says, I'm not working with another agent, but I may work with another agent in the future. I'm like, well, if you want to work with another agent for this property, you need to call that agent now.
Right.
I'm not even doing this.
No. That's
and another one that happened recently.
Or, but I'm not working with an agent, so the commission, I'm going to save money on the commission, or the commission will get credited.
We get that so many times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and my answer to that is, which I told the agents, I say we don't pay buyers to buy our properties. We don't offer commission to buyers. I'm really sorry, and you just say it really nicely, and usually people just move along,
right,
But I have found the worst offenders. I'm interrupting you. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Not sorry. Right.
Right.
I found the worst offenders are commercial real estate agents. I'm not putting anybody down, but they always think, well, I can buy something I know. I will cut the commission.
I have a license and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Or lawyers. And I have lots of lawyer friends and know people.
We know lots of lawyers.
Yeah. So, but that's who generally goes in. But I find I remember we had an agent who was getting fired from a listing, and the sellers, and these sellers were very snobby. They were in Kent. And so I went over this like 7-8 years ago, and I went over there and was talking to them, and they wanted to hear that my family went to Chevy Chase Country Club, even though we didn't have any money for food for the children. But anyway, and that's the kind of stuff that mattered to them, and which I was like, but they these buyers came unrepresented, and they asked me, the husband asked right at the door, how much is the commission on this property? This is a long time ago, before all this NAR stuff. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, let me ask the seller if they want to tell you that. Want me to tell you that? I'm happy to ask. And he goes, why? Is that a problem? And I said, no, I'm happy to ask if you need to know, but I'll ask them. And he goes, oh, that's okay. And it's because he was trying to get some of it.
Right.
But he stopped and just went away. So I think like the old sheepdog eyeball story where you're looking people in the eye and being confident really matters.
Yeah.
I think it just really matters. But yeah.
Well,
I'm happy to talk about NAR and what I think about all that.
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I want to hear it. I want to hear what
you were about to say something else.
All I was saying was, I just another quick like real estate anecdote that I'm sure our listeners will love hearing these because this kind of crap happens all the time. But I get an inquiry through Instagram direct message. I check the woman's profile. I look her up on LinkedIn. Legit person. And looks like should be able to afford the property she's asking about. I'm like, great. Give me your email and everything. She gives me everything. We set the appointment for 4 o'clock on a Saturday. Now, I think we all know that 4 o'clock on a Saturday sucks. Okay?
Yes.
And it's like probably the worst times. I want to be in bed at 4 o'clock. I mean, really.
Right.
I got kids soccer during the day. I got all kinds of things. So I'm like, I'll figure out a way to make this work because it's a new listing. I want to get a showing for this listing.
Why would you not give that lead to somebody else on your team?
Like because this woman.
Topic.
Fair enough.
That's a great point. Actually.
Fair enough. I often do actually. Amir on my team. I often put him in control of a lot of showings and stuff. But I just figured I would go do it.
Yeah.
Also had to do with her LinkedIn. I was like, okay, maybe this is someone I want to know.
Sure.
Would like to meet. She immediately started in the morning with I have a work event and this got pushed off to 5 p.m. And I'm like, I'm not showing the property at 5 p.m. I just straight up said her. I'm like, well, we can do it another day then.
Yeah.
And then she tried to pull it back like, oh, let's meet at 4 p.m. And I knew the whole game that was about to get played. She was going to make me get down there.
Yeah.
At like 3-4 and then push it again.
Yeah.
And once I'm down there.
Yeah.
I did have another showing at another property downtown earlier than that with a person I knew who was going to be there and everything. So I just sort of played along.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she said like, oh, we're still on for 4 o'clock, I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I park in front of the building at 3:30. 3:35, she does it right on cue.
Oh, that's amazing.
She's like, oh, this got extended. I said,
that's pretty clever.
I just wrote back to her. I said, the appointment's canceled. We can reschedule another time. Do you think I've heard from her since?
But look how wise you are to have spotted how that person
I mean,
was.
I knew the whole
that.
thing from the beginning to end.
That's so wise because that insight is so helpful to your clients.
Yeah.
I mean, you're using it to protect yourself.
Right.
But that insight is how you get transactions to work.
Yeah.
It's how you solve problems. It's how you get the other agent to take your lousy offer. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Because you figure out the other agent how they need to be spoken to, and that's huge.
Yeah.
That's really huge.
Or even if your story goes back to the story you mentioned at the top of the show. You start asking a lot of questions at the onset, knowing it's a hot property with a lot of interest and an offer that's out there. You start to kind of weed through. It's like even if it comes in, this might not be something that the seller wants to work with.
Knowing that seller, knowing how long you'd owned the property, and knowing we all know.
Yeah.
I think we all know that answer.
Yeah, but I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
So this lead is now gone.
I haven't heard from her.
So, but again, that goes back to like
right.
giving her to Amir or somebody on the team to let them kind of like bake it in the oven.
Oh, good
Amir,
idea.
I mean,
I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
No, Amir's good. Amir's good. Like Amir is good. Good guys. Good idea.
7 touches.
Thank
7
you
days. Here we go.
for the business advice.
We are delegating right here.
No, I'm
live
serious.
camera.
I mean, I have a contact, so I will. Amir can reach out to her.
I mean, some agents have a really high threshold for people to jerk them around. Some people only deal with those kind of people.
Yeah.
I would never, but some people do, and they don't mind it, right?
And they have great success with them.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I
They just are tenacious and stick with it.
Right.
I was explaining this story to my stepdaughter earlier. She's 14, and she's like, she's on the cusp of like knowing that there's a world ahead of her.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I told her this story, and I said, when you get out here in the world, people jerk you around.
Yeah.
And they don't care about your schedule. They don't know that I have a stepdaughter playing soccer in the afternoon, or I need to, or I had a tennis thing set up, or that I had another appointment. They don't know that. They're not thinking about that. They're only thinking about, they don't give, they don't care.
That's right.
They don't know that my life is complex too.
But how powerful it is of a lesson to give your kids to know and say with no judgment. Some people are just very selfish. Some people can't change, and some people are that way. So if you know it, just learn how to know it when you see it.
Yeah.
And don't get all in a knot about it. Just know it and go duly noted, staying away from you.
Right.
And that's what you did.
Yeah.
But what a gift if you can give that to your kids.
Well,
because it makes
our
a
team, similar subject, but our team last week at our team meeting, if you guys have heard of the DISC challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
So we did that, like the whole group. So you identify like right off the bat, like you're a D, you're an I, you're an S, you're a C. And it's fascinating to kind of see like who matches up with who. But being able to do that through social media channels or whatnot, when you get a cold call or even a warm call coming in, finding out what seller profile this is. So when you go in, you need to know if you need to be very direct or have a spreadsheet of comps or be all lovey-dovey and huggy and you're the greatest person in the world type personality.
Really smart.
Yeah. It's
Meeting
good.
people where they're
it's
at.
Fascinating.
With no judgment. That's, you just figure it out and here's who you are. Well, you asked me and I didn't answer you unless you're out of time.
No. I mean, but see how fast time went?
Yes.
That
It
was crazy.
It was? Okay.
But yeah, NAR. I want to know what you think about it. We finally got to like
NAR.
Yeah,
Okay.
the hot topic.
So I think the whole settlement, I understand why NAR settled the case, of course, because it would have been too expensive to litigate it and too much risk if they lost, and they could never have paid what would have happened if they lost. But I think there's a problem in the industry and in the world is that some people who love power end up really putting in things in a top-down way. And I think it's much better to inspire people and hope that they have buy-in rather than expect compliance. But power-hungry people want compliance, and they want to push people into doing what they want them to do for the benefit of the person that's at the top. And that happens a lot. And I think it's happened at NAR. I think that's why I think it's happened at Bright. I don't mean that to be mean, but I mean Bright fines agents every time they sneeze. And if you look at the chat room on Bright, it's just I hate them. Why do they
Never even looked. I didn't know they had a chat room.
Yeah. And so I've talked to them about it, and I said, you could be the most popular MLS ever. Just love your members and try to serve them. Rather than saying you're not going to be able to put your off MLS sale in there, you're not going to get credit. I spoke to one of them the other day and said to Renee there, why are you making it so that an agent who sells an off-market sale can't get any credit for it? And which is the same thing they've had, but they've changed that to make it worse. And I said, and he said, well, we might let agents put in their off MLS sales. We'll see how they behave. And I just thought,
what?
Yeah. And I said, but you're just making people mad. I said, agents run their production from MLS, and even though they have things that aren't in MLS, they still run them and submit that to maybe GCAR for awards or other magazines or other places where awards are given based on that production. And he said, well, we're not out to help people with production. Well, when you have that philosophy, your members will know you don't care about them, and that's what's happened. And it's a shame because they could be a fabulous MLS. They could have all the data you all need, all the information for when you want to go price another property rather than you don't even know who sold it or the listing agent didn't bother to put it in at all with any pictures or floor plans because it's too hard. Do you know? And so
this is enlightening, quite frankly, to hear that.
Yeah. So it's been kind of it's been in my craw for a long time. And I think NAR did the same thing. I think NAR I remember when the clear cooperation policy was put in place, and I was speaking to someone that was on the emerging trends in MLS committee for NAR, who is someone I've known a long time, and she said to me, we need to do this. And it was a basic distrust of realtors. It means that they think every agent who has a seller who doesn't want their property publicly published, whether they're wealthy or have artwork in there, they don't want, or private or in a nasty marriage and someone's going to shoot them or someone's elderly or whatever all the reasons are, that the only reason a realtor would not put a listing in Bright is because they want to pocket it and sell it themselves.
Right.
And so many, you just talked right here about, Max, about how a buyer was coming to you directly and that you knew they were going to be a waste of time. If you were an agent that was out to pocket your own listing, you would have been all over that because you would have been out for the transaction,
Right.
not what's best for everyone. And so there's just this top-down general distrust of agents from NAR. I don't think they'd ever admit it because I don't think they have the self-awareness to acknowledge it, and it's a shame. And same with Bright. And so I think, Bright was pushing to push legislation in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia to require all listings that were sold, all homeowners selling listings, to be in the MLS. Legislation. They were pushing for that. I went to a meeting about that. Are you all on crack? I mean, homeowners want to sell their house their own way with the help of their agent, whatever way that is. I don't care what way it is.
This is what I said 2 weeks ago when we had Mark Loam here. It's like, I'm a home seller. I own the asset.
Right.
You can't tell me
right.
what to do with this.
Right.
Sorry.
This is another subject. I mean, like, same breath, though. I've always thought down the road, I know this is like higher up, maybe Robert Refkin type discussion, but why would Compass not just we don't want to mess with NAR or GCAR or any of these other MLSs and keep everything in-house and force the consumer to go to Compass.com.
I don't think, I asked Robert that. I've talked to him about that. And I just don't think I think he thinks the agents need an MLS and he thinks that it's a good thing to have an MLS, but we shouldn't be forced to use it if it's not what the client wants. And their privacy laws are all kinds of things, but it was just a very top-down thing. I think one thing that people don't all understand, I'm sure you all do, but Benito, is how much money the MLS makes from selling our data and how much money they give to GCAR and NAR. The NAR-affiliated MLSs do, because not all MLSs are NAR-affiliated, but most of them are in the country, and they fund NAR in a huge way. And I've seen that flow chart and how much money goes, and it's a money racket. It's just, and you look at someone who's doing something with bad intentions, it's always follow the money, right?
I mean, this is where the antitrust kicks in.
Totally.
This is it.
Yeah, so I think we are all sitting ducks for, not personally, any of us, but for getting sued for the Clear Cooperation Act policy, because I think the Department of Justice hates it and doesn't think people should be told how to sell their houses. And a Clear Cooperation policy, I know Bright led up on their interpretation of it more recently, but across the rest of the country, a seller who doesn't have their property in MLS can't even tell their neighbors on their listserv, can't put a sign up, can't do anything they might want to do. Without getting their agent fined a hefty fine. And our MLS fines $5,000 for that. Most MLSs, like Richmond, $250. So most Clear Cooperation violations across the country, the fines are minimal. Not in ours. Ours is punish our members as much as possible.
I got a $250 fine yesterday.
Did you?
I can't remember. It was like tax ID missing. Something ridiculous.
Well, rather than emailing you and saying you have a mistake here, fix it, which is what a supportive service would do, they want to nail you. Because
I ignored the first warning.
Be careful.
I wasn't clear.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Yeah, you got to pay attention or you get fined all the time. But anyway, that's a battle I actually fight quite often, this topic, because I think entrepreneurs don't like rules. They like systems that support them.
Right.
And most humans don't like rules imposed on them that aren't something they agree with. None of us want to.
What safety or help does that provide? I mean, it's just
right.
I feel like the whole objective is like we want like the freedom to do these transactions however the seller needs us to do them or however we can.
Right.
And then share information as freely and easily as possible, including if the seller needs to offer some compensation and they're like, I absolutely want to offer a buyer agent some money to try to help to get this sold. It's been on the market for 9 months.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
Like it makes sense.
Right. But not if you're trying to make sure the MLS stays in place. And even the head of Bright told me the MLSs will not be in place longer. And I said, you are killing yourself doing that. You're killing your own MLS because you could be the most popular place ever. But your value is in your data, period. Right. And if you aren't keeping your data up to date and you're not allowing agents to put in what they want to put in, you're just decimating the value of your product. And there have been times in the market a couple of years ago, more so, where 20% of the market, even 28% of the market, depending on buy sides and sales side, listing sides, weren't in MLS. And that's called your data is missing
Right.
a fifth at least of
Components.
the data. And for people like all of us, we need the data. So
Yeah.
it's just very self-serving and very short-sighted and just such a disappointment. So I think things will change. I think things have to change. And, co-stars out there floating around with piles of money. I don't know who's going to make the next MLS. NAR should have kept Realtor.com and made an MLS at the time. I thought that at the time. They didn't. They sold their name. I mean,
Right.
so I think you're going to see big changes, but I don't know how and when. It's a money racket, so it's hard. Anyway, I hope you don't frown on my negative angle on that.
No, my angle is
Very high up. I was thinking more like, do you like the new change, like 3% on this or whatever?
yeah,
There's
yeah,
X percent on the list side, and I have to
No,
negotiate.
transparency's
Yeah,
better. We
I
should
like
have,
it.
we should
Totally.
have had transparency.
But my
Yeah.
angle is just this taking it back to just to me and the way I think about things.
Yeah.
I've been doing this a long time too. And when I sold a house in Georgetown recently that I was very happy about selling.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to go put it in MLS, and then I was reminded like we can't put ourselves in as a listing because it's
Right.
sold off market. And I was
Right.
like, wait, really?
Right.
And I'm sure I already knew this, but I was like reminded of this again, and I was like, well,
Because you're Satan.
yeah.
You are Satan for selling something not an MLS.
But
I tell the agents all the time, that is so special. You are Satan.
once again,
Yes, I know.
it was, I literally did such a great job. I did exactly what the seller wanted. The seller was like, Max,
Yeah.
sell this house,
Yeah.
call the agents
Yeah.
find us a buyer this weekend, and sell it with all the furniture in it. And I did that for $200,000 more than they asked.
That's pretty damn amazing.
Okay.
Well, the whole idea that everything sells for more, you'll never get rid of me in this interview. I'm going to be here all day. That whole idea that things only sell for more if they have the broadest market exposure is false. Why does Chanel bags why does Chanel not sell their bags on Amazon? Because the exclusivity of something can make someone pay more for it. And that's how a purse that probably costs $200 to make can sell for 10 grand. That's it. Because they're not.
Even if you go into the stores, you can't buy them. It's like you have to be on this list like that and Hermes and.
But
some-
that's
it's
all
ridiculous.
the game of exclusivity. So it's
Yeah.
it's a fact, and people will pay more before something goes into the MLS because they're afraid someone will get it, and they
Absolutely.
won't. So to say, and the study that Bright MLS has is totally flawed. I could talk to you about what's wrong with it. I've read it for a long time, but your viewers will be bored. So anyway,
Well, I
Yes.
love that was great.
well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. Thank you. And,
Fascinating. Yeah.
Really
yeah,
was-
and
yeah.
The oracle of real estate.
Definitely.
I'm not an oracle. I'm just
Ah.
interested in it, more interested in people. But I think agents are just such good people. They give so much back to the community. They do so many things for other people that no one has any idea that you do. I really want to write. I wrote a letter op-ed to the Post about it a while back when the stuff that was coming on in the press about, commissions are going to be downward pressure on commissions and not going to, people can save money. I sat at dinner with someone at a birthday party Saturday night who said, well, I'm going to sell my condo. It was the party for an agent, so she would have used that agent. And she said, but I'm not going to have to pay the buyer's agent anymore. And I said, that hasn't really changed. People really are still paying buyer's agents because someone's got to pay the buyer's agent. Otherwise, you've got a buyer that's not represented, and a buyer that's not represented creates a lot of liability for you, Mrs. Seller, a lot of liability. It's so much better to have someone representing the buyer.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Totally.
I deal with all the
Putting
legal
the
cases.
Liability
Yeah.
back on the seller.
Oh, totally.
That's smart.
Total liability. And on the agent, the
Yeah.
listing agent.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you for having me.
Holly, thanks
really
so much.
great to chat with you both, and I'll surely never be invited back, but that's okay.
What?
We'll have you back for sure.
Just
you're
joking. I'm
amazing.
just-
Holly, Brent's got some rapid fire questions for you.
And Brent hasn't eaten in 36 hours, so I
36
better
hours.
answer
Careful.
him.
So I have an hour and a half before I dig in.
Okay.
Outlaw dip.
You want a cough drop? No, I'm just kidding.
So you've been here for 5 generations. What is your favorite DC neighborhood? You have to pick one.
Wow, Palisades. I live in Chevy Chase, but Palisades.
Palisades.
I live in Chevy Chase, Maryland, 1 block over the line, but I love Palisades.
Favorite vacation spot?
I'm a person who loves to travel all over the world, and that's why I will never retire until I realize I'm stupid, which could be right now. I have no idea, but I hope I have the self-awareness to figure it out. I keep asking the agents, let me know when I need to be put out to pasture. But I loved Myanmar. I love New Zealand. I love Japan. I love, I love anywhere that's got a different culture. Like I went to Greenland, and those people are Inuit, and fascinating. I just love.
You really explored.
Yeah, I've been to almost 60 countries.
Wow.
Because I just spend money doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
that's
a follow-up question to that, number 3 here. What is your favorite airline to travel when you're going to all these places?
Depends where I'm going, but there's some crappy airlines and some great airlines. Most airlines that are American, I don't mean American Airlines, but most United States airlines don't hold a candle to ones from other countries.
I would agree.
I mean, Qantas and what's the one from Saudi Arabia? I was also on the one from Qatar. I can't remember the names.
Etihad or Emirates? Etihad.
Yeah, Arab Emirates. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Those airlines are fabulous. I mean, they treat you like gold.
Favorite ski resort? You mentioned skiing.
I loved Aspen. I
Aspen.
haven't been there a while, but Aspen's, I think if you take the lift up Aspen, even in the summer, and look over the mountains, it's like a religious experience, or it's just fabulous. And also in Aspen, this isn't a rapid fire, right? There's the John Denver Park, and this sounds so wacky and stupid, but they have a lot of his song lyrics carved into boulders, and you just walk through the park, and the lyrics are very meaningful when you're in nature. It sounds kind of hokey, but it was actually lovely, and it's right on the edge of town, so do that if you're ever there.
Yeah. I'm offended because I have, going off on a tangent here, but like John Denver wrote Country Roads
Yeah.
Totally.
from West Virginia, but now you've got Jelly Roll with his version, Lonely Rose. And I'm like, I can't listen to it. I feel like it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, who puts tattoos on their face?
Right. Last question here. Your favorite fast food restaurant?
Probably McDonald's.
McDonald's.
But I don't go there that often anymore. Yeah, but usually when people call me, one of the agents will call me and I'll go, wait a minute, I'm about to order.
Right.
And they'll go, oh, again? Anyway, so I'm on my way to the office. But thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks
Yeah,
so
it's nice
much.
to talk to you all. And thank you for having such a great reputation in the industry and making the industry a better place, because people like you do a great job. And I know that from talking to so many agents. So thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Really
that.
appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at KeyedInPodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.